Lopez wants it away. And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza and the Mets lead 3-2. Bartolo has done it! The impossible has happened! This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mets fans of all ages, here is your host, Nick Durst. Hello, Mets fans. Welcome back to another edition of Bleav in the Mets right here in the Bleav Podcast Network. Make sure you're leaving a 5-star review on all your audio platforms. Like and subscribe on all social media and YouTube, and leave a comment below. It's finally going to happen, folks. Can you believe it? JD Martinez makes his Mets debut. Before Kodai Senga's back this year, Kodai Senga I knew was going to be out till June. So negative Nick always has to look on the negative side of things. But listen, JD Martinez, he's finally back. Thank goodness JD Martinez is back. They need him offensively. Missing Francisco Alvarez, that's a huge loss. So joining me now to help me discuss this, a former guest of the show, a repeat guest of the show from Fantasy Guru. He is Mets fan, Justin Fensterman. Justin, welcome back to the program. And how pumped are you to see JD Martinez make his Mets debut tonight? I was very pumped until I found out it was on Apple TV, so I will not be watching. I refused to buy Apple TV to watch a few Mets games. But nevertheless, excited to see JD Martinez finally in a Mets uniform.
Can Ted Lasso sell you on Apple TV, Durst? I'm sure you've already seen it somehow, some way, but if not, then it might be worth it to get this one Mets game. I can't stand that, man. It's just, when can games just be on TV and that's it? Enough with these streaming apps already. I know I sound like an old fart, but at the same time, it's time to make everything simpler and not just trying to really drain us of all of our money on these zillion streaming services. But I'm very excited to see him. We know that this guy, after what we saw last year, a 30 home run hitter, now they need that power. And I'll say this to kind of couple it with the Alvarez injury, Nick. I actually have a betting future on Francisco Alvarez over 22 and a half home runs. That all my research showed me that is a very good possibility. Now, not really anymore. It just seems like here, but they're getting that necessary power with JD Martinez. And it's just been incredible after the first couple of weeks of the year where it really looked grim. Now it's all of a sudden started turning around. But I will say this, we've seen this act before, Durst.
Seen it before. Alvarez, I want to touch on in a moment, but I thought he was a slam dunk to hit 30 home runs this year. And now, of course, this injury, not great. And listen, now they got to deal with the way it is. They were hot. They were really hot. They lost the last game to the Dodgers. They looked terrible the next 2 games versus the Giants. They got lucky there to offensively explode yesterday. They win. I still don't know what to make of this team because every year they always are great in April. Last year, they had the worst season in like 10 years as far as like a month is concerned, and that was May. Last May ended the season for them. So this is going to be a crucial May coming up here. They need to be in the thick of things going towards June, need to be over 500. Right now, they're in decent position, but I'm worried without Alvarez. JD Martinez, we would hope, is going to make an impact, but you're really getting an auto out and Tomas Nido every night when he plays. Omar Narvaez, maybe hits a home run, but he's not going to hit. Overall, though, a lot of guys seem to be finding their groove, finding their swing. If Carlos Mendoza came to you tonight, Justin, and was like, I don't know what to do here with JD Martinez. How should I construct this lineup? You got the analytics, you do your research and stuff. How would you put the lineup together?
I mean, if anything, I'd probably end up hitting him 5th or 6th to start. I don't want to put the pressure on him immediately. I want to see what they have because likely, Nick, he's going to have to shake some rust. I know he was able to hit a bit in the minors leading up to all of this, but still, I want to see him get used to it before I start putting that kind of pressure and messing, especially with the heart of the order. So that's kind of where I'm going here. And luckily for the Mets, with this schedule that they have, Very winnable series. The Cubs won't be easy, but you got kind of 2 with the Cardinals here over their next 4. I mean, that's a blessing for them right there.
Ellinger on the injured list for the Cubs, so that helps.
Right, it does. Everybody's hurt, Nick. It's crazy at this point here. You should see my fantasy teams. It's got more red marks on my fantasy teams than I did on my test back in 3rd grade from the teachers. But with these series with the Cardinals coming up, it will absolutely give JD Martinez a chance to kind of get back in his groove rather than going after completely crushing organizations. The Cubs series still won't be the easiest, but that's where I would hit him. I'd hit him towards the bottom, latter part of it in the 6th area.
Well, I'm going to assume that the lineup is going to be Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, Martinez. But I'm with you because Marte's playing so great. I want Marte to keep batting 2nd. Put Jay-Z batting 5th, Beatty behind him, and you're looking at a nice little lengthy lineup there. But you are going to be missing Francisco Alvarez. So can the Mets survive without Francisco Alvarez? Well, I don't know. I mean, Yuki Matsui says JD Martinez, the savior, has arrived to Flushing. He might have to be with the offense now without Francisco Alvarez. But Francisco Alvarez, I thought he was going to have a great year, 30 home runs. He was on pace for it. He was hitting for a high average. He was playing solid defense. And I was hurt. Torn thumb ligament. They say maybe at best 6 to 8 weeks. If the Mets are lucky. I've heard this before. Anytime they say a time period, like, oh, we're going to put Senga, he's going to just shut down for 2 weeks. Now he's out till June.
Right.
If they're lucky, I think the best case scenario is Alvarez come back late August. I would think it's more likely if he comes back at September. Do you think they could get enough offense through the rest of the lineup to make up for the big loss in his power bat? Because you're not getting that offense from Narvaez and Anita.
No, and that's why I don't. And that's why when talking to some of our other friends who are Mets fans about this is that I am unfortunately a believer. And look, I'm a realist here. I really try not to think of it from the fan standpoint here and as a Mets fan, how can you? Because we've seen this before where they've started great in the spring and then they go out west at some point in the summer and poof, it's all over. It's rinse and repeat, same song, different dance every year. I don't think that they have that power. Luckily, though, we're seeing Alonso hit well, unfortunately, and not in that 210, 220 range. Like so that's helping them, right. And so that's helping them out right now. So I think with JD Martinez there, it kind of hedges for that power for Alonso in case that batting average starts to fall. Once again, if we're really going to see it be up and down. But that's the thing. I don't think that they ultimately have enough offense here. Can they stay healthy? That's also going to be a big question for them as well, besides Alvarez now being out. I don't know if we're going to see Alvarez. I think it obviously depends on where they are in the standings. They may not bring him back if they're sucking by August. Then it wouldn't be surprising. I ultimately do see him coming back, but I don't think that they have with this lineup right here. I don't think that they have the power or consistency to really have this sustain past another month and a half. Maybe call me a pessimist, but I call it a realist argument.
I think you're right because they don't have much power outside of Alonso and Alvarez, and now Alvarez is obviously out. What has helped them in this little run here has been that the batting averages have jumped up a little bit. Okay, last year, everybody's batting around 220. McNeil was the best average at 270. Now you have a bunch of guys at least over 250. Brett Beatty's one of them. He's come out with a good start. Yamed Medina says the Mets need Brady to tap into that raw power they talked about. Yeah, it'd be nice for Brady to hit some more home runs. I just don't know if that's his game. I think realistically for Beatty, maybe you could think about 20 home runs. I haven't seen that he's going to be this crazy power at this point. But boy, do I miss Ronnie Mauricio because I thought he was going to be electric this season, and he's out. But Beatty's been high, has had a good average. Marte, I mentioned before, he's had a great season so far. Nimmo has not hit very well for average. He had that one game where he was great with the 5 RBI. Lindor's average is still bad, even though he had a good game in San Francisco. So eventually this is going to balance out. You already see it. Jeff McNeil is off to a slow start. Now he's up there leading the team in average. So eventually, guys probably going to just hit to their career averages, Justin.
Right. And here's the other thing with this team, too. You got Nimmo, who's leading the team in RBIs, and he's got a 186 batting average there. I mean, that's all that you need to say right there when it comes to this team and whether or not we can expect ultra power up and down the lineup, which I don't think that they have. I will say this about this Mets team, which is awesome to see. They don't strike out, which shows that discipline at the plate. So now the question is, if they're able to get on base, do they need to have that power up and down the lineup? Which is why, Nick, I don't mean you're often someone that likes to think outside the box when it comes to things in general. Staggering that power in the lineup and your argument with Marte before, again, makes me want to hit someone like a JD Martinez a little bit lower, because now you can stagger it a little bit. If you have him surrounded by guys who are going to get on base, then you're always going to have, or virtually you would think with that mindset, you're always going to have at least someone on the base paths by the time he gets up, and you can split the lineup a little bit instead of all forcing it up top and then praying and closing your eyes that anyone in the bottom of the lineup can somehow hit one out of the park without getting.
That's old school mentality, to stack everybody at the top and then hope for the best at the bottom.
I don't think they have that luxury.
No, they don't. We'll see how it keeps going. Eventually, everyone's going to balance out. I'm sure there'll be many more injuries, but overall, you have to be pleased with what you've seen from guys like Beatty, Marte, Harrison Bader hitting for average, all surprising, but got to get Nimmo's average up there. Got to get Nimmo on base more. Need to have more runners on for Pete Alonso, because a lot of his home runs are coming with a solo fashion, which is quite unfortunate. And the big problem with this team is that their pitching stinks. 4 of their starting pitchers, ERAs over 3. No surprise. Adrian Hauser has been terrible. Budo had a good start too. Everyone's like, "Oh, Budo's gonna be, he's gonna be great. He stunk the next game." None of these pitchers, Justin, are going beyond 5 innings, and the bullpen is gonna get killed eventually. Reed Garrett is an absolute stud, but he's pitched more innings so far this season than Adrian Hauser. His arm is gonna tire out. He's gonna get hurt. They can't rely on this any further. They need Kodai Senga back. They need the Ghost Fork, but he's not going to be back till June. How are they going to piece this together pitching wise? It's not a long-term strategy of success to have your starting pitchers going 5 innings max every night.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're striking out a lot of batters. I mean, that's the big thing with them as a whole. I mean, you look at them, they're getting a lot of strikeouts. They're not really allowing home runs. So you're really walking a tightrope, because how is this going to sustain with them allowing the fewest amount of home runs in the majors right now? That's not going to sustain to me with this group of pitching. And this is what Mets fans do. And that's because of the sad history of the Mets. They latch on to these guys who are good for a time period while this team is winning. I mean, I'm sure how many people do you think are buying Reed Garrett jerseys right now?
Well, look at our guy Yuki Matsui here. He says he wants to make Reed Garrett into a starter and winner Christian Scott. So you're going to put Christian Scott in the bullpen? I don't know if that's going to be good for his development. I'd pass on that for now unless something goes awry. But
a good thing right now. Look, ride this out. Because, again, I don't know how you can think this team, besides being just a complete fan and hoping, can contend for a World Series. I don't think it can. That's the thing. So ride this out right now. I mean, if you are winning, don't make too many tinkers and don't make too many changes in what you're putting out there. Or even if Reed Garrett is good coming in as that second pitcher, and forget the 4-0. I don't care about wins when it comes to these pitchers, Durst. I don't. I care about the ERA. I care about the whip. They walk. The one thing with this Mets team is they strike out a lot of guys. They don't allow a lot of long balls, but they walk a hell of a lot of guys too. So they're always putting people on base when it comes to this pitching, which also to me kind of puts up a little bit of a red flag that this all is just not going to sustain. But while they are winning after what we saw those first couple of weeks where you think that there's no hope, might as well just ride out what's working.
Well, here's something that could have worked, and it worked a little bit early on in his career. And then they just, for some reason, were like, this is not going to work out. They should have never gotten rid of Seth Lugo, and they should have had him as a starting pitcher. He's off to a tremendous start this year. 1.66 ERA in 38 innings pitched, 23 strikeouts, 1.11 whip with the Royals. Last year, he was very good as a starting pitcher with the San Diego Padres. 8-7 was his record. But like we said, who cares about the records really for the most part? but it was durable. 26 games started, 3.57 ERA, 146 innings pitched. This is a guy they had and they let go for no reason. And this has been the problem with this franchise. And when you have guys who could throw strikes who are durable, don't put them in the bullpen and then cast them off. Medina says all the walks is why they can't get the innings from the starters. I guess, yeah, but
yeah, it's true.
Seth Lugo, say what you want about him. He was a good Met. They put him in the bullpen. He wasn't happy there. He could have been a starter. You can't tell me he would have been a worse option than anybody they have right now. So maybe, back to Matsui's point here, Christian Scott, let's not have the Mets taking any sort of their pitching prospects that might be any good and putting them in the bullpen and then discarding them. And look, they did the same thing with Zach Wheeler. They just didn't see the value. This is a franchise that does not know how to visualize what a good starting pitcher is in the future. Maybe that'll change now with David Stearns, but there is a starting pitcher out there who is a good starting pitcher and has been in the news recently, and that is Justin Verlander, former Met great. He might be returning to the Mets. The Astros are 7-19. They're in last place in the AL West. And it looks like they're missing Dusty Baker, aren't they, Justin? They need that old school Dusty Baker mentality, keeping it calm. These GMs and owners are so quick to turn things over to the generational youth, first-time managers. Sometimes veteran experience helps. I mean, look at the last 3 World Series managers. They're all over the age of 67. So something to be said there about the veteran leadership there. But Ken Rosenthal reported it, or he wrote about it. I wrote about it for Sports Illustrated. Justin Verlander to the Mets. It would make some sense if the Mets will run it because they're already paying 3/4 of his contract. So that would make things pretty easy. But on the flip side there, because the Mets are paying his contract, that would make him a very attractive trade target for other teams. So you're ultimately going to be coming down to what prospects are you willing to give up? You're not going to give Drew Gillett back to the Astros. So a lot of time between now and the end of July. But what do you think, Justin? In general, the Mets, are they going to be trending towards being buyers this trade deadline? I would say they're more likely to stay put than buy because I don't think they want to give up any prospect capital.
Right. And I think that's the overall message from Steve Cohen and everything, which is stop the spending, is that they want to try to build something. And I respect that to an extent. But here's the thing, Nick. You know how it's going to be because there's going to be a lot of pressure from fans. There's going to be a lot of pressure from the media that if the Mets are somewhat competing for that, and I'm not talking about just competing like they're right there. I'm talking about within striking distance. They're 5 games behind the final wild card spot, and here we are a week before the trade deadline. There's going to be pressure to go all in and buy. I wouldn't do that. Stay put with what you have. We've been told, and it's all been advertised that the next few years, it's kind of like if you're a Mets fan, if you're a Knicks fan and you're also a Mets fan, you understand what's going on right now. And it's not going to be some freakish, oh, we're going to abandon the plan. They'd be stupid to abandon that plan. I'd rather be fully locked and loaded and know my future starting next year and beyond. And that includes what the heck is going to be going on with Pete Alonso, than worrying about maybe making it into the playoffs this year and then losing in the wild card round. And that's it. And it's one and done. So I'd actually rather build towards the future. And again, me rooting for the teams that I've rooted for has made me this patient because it's just when you build organically, better things happen and you're constantly churning out bigger talent. I mean, look at what the Orioles are doing right now. The Orioles have an amazing farm club, and it's taken them years to build. They added a little bit of pitching to that, and now look at them. If their bullpen can stay intact, no one's going to be able to stop them. That's where I want the Mets to get, Nick, even if it takes another 2 to 3 years. And I don't want them to waste it just to make the wild card. People are always going to go to Mets games. We'll all be miserable together.
So it's a new regime, but 2022, the Mets are in first place. They're on pace for 100 wins, and they didn't buy. They got Darren Ruff, and they got Daniel Vogelback on the cheap. They needed a reliever, and they weren't willing to do it then. So why would this year be different when they're maybe teetering around a wild card spot? I think they're more likely to either stand pat or be sellers still at the trade deadline. I want them to keep winning, though, because I do not want to see them trade Pete Alonso. because I think David Stearns would if he got what he wanted, because he has no ties to him. He didn't draft him. And that would be a devastating shot for the fan base. And it would be a hard PR pill to swallow for David Stearns unless they end up winning the World Series next year.
Well, I mean, let me ask you, Nick. I mean, as someone who's actually like physically up there and you're going to games and you're constantly, you're running this podcast for Bleav, you are the Mets representation here. What would you want them to do as someone who's right there if they're in the thick of it by the trade deadline? Would you want them to make moves, or would you want them to stick with your process? I mean, look, we've seen teams like the Knicks. It's worked for the Knicks. I mean, what do you think when it comes to thinking about long-term versus short-term as a Mets fan?
I don't think this team, if they make the playoffs, is winning the World Series. So it really depends on what we're looking at for a few key things here. If they could acquire a big-time starting pitcher with 2 years left on their contract, I'm willing to say, sure, let's give up Jet Williams for a Cy Young pitcher, because the Mets have a plethora of middle infielder prospects. Now, am I going to mortgage the whole farm to go get Alex Bregman on a half-season rental? No. But if you're able to do what you did last year, which is we will pay take the contract and pay it, and we'll give you lesser prospect, I'm all for it. But I'm not trading any of these starting pitcher prospects. I could live with trading one of the position players for a pitcher, because they need pitching for next year. They have 5 free agent starting pitchers, so they got to get pitching somehow. So if you're looking,
that's why I didn't want them to trade Justin Verlander last year. At least keep somebody. And I was actually at Justin Verlander's final start at Citi Field. So yeah, I was there. Yeah, it was my buddy's bachelor party. We were in the suite. I'm sitting there stuffing my face with chicken tenders that just kept coming out, trays and trays. And he's telling me it's not going to happen. It's not going to. And I'm like, dude, it's going to happen. They're going. I don't want it to happen. Keep someone there. Make it interesting for the fans. Justin Verlander is a huge draw, and he still has something left in the tank, despite how old he is. But you just felt the vibe. He was going in the next 48 hours.
Yeah, once Scherzer went, we knew it was done. But yeah, would have been nice to keep one pitcher at least. But listen,
Adrian Hauser is such a draw, Durst, to pay $200+ for tickets, food, and how to get to
I haven't gone to a game in a long time, but I'd be fine with bringing Verlander back if it made sense. Like, you're already paying him, so it's not like you're going to be taking out more money for the luxury tax.
No trade backs, though. Like you're saying, isn't there a rule with that? No trade backs once that happens. So their prospects are not returning, like you said.
Exactly. So we'll see. If it's for lesser prospects, make it happen. But lots to happen still here for the Mets this season. Keep it locked here on Bleav in the Mets on all social media platforms, on YouTube at BLEAVINTHEMETS. Leave a 5-star review on the audio version as well. Thank you for everybody who's watching this live and everybody who's listening on demand as well. We appreciate you. Justin, let everybody know where they could find your baseball writing and you on social media and your Mets takes.
Absolutely. I'm at Fensty Sports on X and also Instagram. You can hear me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. That's channel 87, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, and find all my writing at fantasyguru.com.
There you have it. Always a pleasure to speak with you talking Mets. And make sure you're following me on X at Nick_Durst, on Instagram at Nick's Food and Stuff. And now I'm writing about the Mets for Sports Illustrated. So check out some of my articles there. Maybe there's some clickbait in there, but that's what we want, the high page views. So let's hope for the best, everybody. And until next time, let's go Mets.